Folks, a black church in Washington, D.C. now owns the trademark to the Proud Boys. Yep, you might say, wait a minute, what the heck happened? Well, remember when that racist group vandalized Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church in 2020? Well, they also got sued. Well, on Monday, Judge Tanya M. Bosier granted the church full ownership of the group's now formerly owned trademark. William Lamar IV is a pastor of Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church. He joins me now in our Black Star Network studios. Pastor, glad to have you here. So this is quite a change. So take me back 5 years ago. What was it? They tore a Black Lives Matter flag down the church?
Yeah, so we had a huge Black Lives Matter sign in front of the congregation in solidarity with the movement. Of course, we know that often the movement and the church were loggerheads, so we wanted to show support for these brave folk who were standing up for us, as we've always stood up for ourselves. And they breached the property, they tore down the sign, and they videotaped it. They put it out on the former Twitter, shouting racist epithets. It was a horrendous scene.
And there were folks who were arrested because of that.
Yes, they were arrested, and we immediately sought legal relief. Immediately.
So you filed the lawsuit, but was part of that lawsuit to get the trademark, or did that?
So we sued them initially for an amount that now is about $3.1 million, and interest is being added. Mm-hmm. And because they did not pay, because they defied the order of Judge Kravitz, we then sued them for ownership of their trademark to get what was awarded to us, because they continue to defy orders. And we will not be quiet. We will not sit back. We will continue to come at them as our ancestors have continued to come to those who visited violence upon us. We won't stop.
And for folks who don't know, listen, when Donald Trump, after inauguration, he immediately pardoned these folks.
Yes.
You had Proud Boys and Oath Keepers.
Yes.
Both of them racist organizations.
Yes.
And so they're so upset with you that they now are trashing you on social media. These, you say your attorney just sent you these. So folks, go to my iPad. And so these are posts that they are putting on social media of Pastor Lamar. You see a bucket of chicken with his face on the front. You see this right here. It says, "A big welcome to the new chairman of the Proud Boys, introducing the Reverend William Lamar IV, more commonly known in the Proud Boys stratosphere as Billy HIV. You see here the autonomous PB would like to welcome our new chairman and trademark holder, Reverend William Lamar IV, pastor of the AME Church in D.C., who now holds the trademark to our name due to the actions and incompetence of our former chairman and his inner circle. We hope this one isn't a federal informant, and for God's sake, they can't even stay away from the Capitol, sir." And then my chairman has his own federally recognized month, owns a sweet, dope-ass trademark, literally owns the previous chairman like a field slave, has never been a certified informant, hates white people almost as much as I do, looks good without a hat on. Look, this is how they behave, and of course, they Proud Boy King. So they're doing this, but and this here says Vice City Proud Boys official Miami chapter, but they use that name anywhere in public, they get slapped with a lawsuit.
Indeed, indeed. We will ensure that this order is enforced, and we will continue to use the courts to get what is due us.
So they think this is a joke, and y'all are saying, no, this is not a joke.
This is not a joke. The firm, Roland, that represented us, represented the Scottsboro Boys, represented Thurgood Marshall and Brown versus Board. They have been doing this for a century. And we have the right partners, and we have the spirit of Elizabeth Freeman, who sued for her own freedom. We have the spirit of Ida B. Wells Barnett. When black AME preachers like myself were afraid to talk about lynching, she continued to go forward. My grandfather said there is no rabbit in him, nor in anybody who is a descendant of him. I am not afraid. We will stand up together. We're going to keep fighting and telling the truth like you're doing right now.
You know, we're living in this space right now where there are a lot of black folk who, and they've been on my show, and folks have said, man, look, Ro, we tired, we're depressed, we're upset. You know, we've been fighting. We thought these things were behind us. And I've heard this from millennials and Gen Z. And one of them, I kind of went off on the show, and I was trying not to. And what I said to them was, I took it back to when I was on the board of the National Association of Black Journalists, and we went after CNN for no black execs. And I was calling them out, calling these white executives out. And I remember calling Bernard Shaw. Say, Bernard, I want to get your permission, because he called out these white men when he got the Lifetime Achievement Award at our convention in Vegas. And I said, I want to get your permission to use this video. He said, Roland, he said, every generation has had its moment. Every generation has had to fight. It's just now your turn. And that's the thing. So I get folk who are upset and frustrated with MAGA and Trump, all sort of stuff. But this is what our folk have had to deal with from the moment we hit these shores.
Roland, remind your listeners the name of your network.
Black Star Network.
Black Star, the United Negro Improvement Association, Marcus Garvey. Up you mighty race. Mm-hmm. You can accomplish what you will. We cannot forget who we are. And here's the thing. America is designed to produce what it produces. Mm-hmm. It was not designed for pluralism. It was not designed as a democracy. They even kept all white men from voting until Andrew Jackson gave the franchise to all white men. This was not a project for us, but we have fought to make it a project. I tell people who come to Metropolitan, if you are not a white man and you are thriving in this nation, it is because of black people. It is because of our efforts to create a democracy, because the founders never intended democracy.
Right.
They never intended it. We have forced the issue. Frederick Douglass from our church fought against the Chinese Exclusion Act. We have never just fought for ourselves. We fought for human beings, and we will not shrink in this moment. And what disturbs me is black people now we have corporate jobs, we got money, we got vacations, and we think that we are safe. Right. We are not safe. And the little trinkets we have, they are fighting to take them away. Get the hell up and do something.
I was literally texting a brother today. They're trying to lay off about 1,000 EPA workers. And he said, I've been talking to many of them. Many of them are starting families. They thought their jobs were safe. They thought a government job was safe. And I said, they're not safe. I had another brother. I was texting today, and I said, I told him, I said, the destruction of America is underway. So what I did was it was a video, and I did a screenshot of the Wall Street Journal's page, and it was all of these crazy things that MAGA's doing. And I said, and he said, well, we're seeing this thing in real time. It's being televised. I said, well, brother, I've been speaking on this very thing since 2009. I said in speeches, on television, on radio, warning people that we are living in what I call white minority resistance. That they, because everything goes back to a study that was done, a polling that was done around the time Obama was inaugurated. And the question was asked, are you optimistic about the future of America for your children? Black people, Latino people, Asian Americans, all more than the majority. There was only one group that was less than the majority, white folks. And I saw that and I said, this is about to be a problem. And then what did we see? Glenn Beck on the air, Obama, he hates white people. And you begin to see this thing, and I said that which turned into my book, White Fear, and how the browning of America is making white folks lose their minds. This is about power, control, money. And what they are doing, they are attacking the civil rights infrastructure, yes, which is the economic infrastructure, oh, yes, of Black America.
Oh, yes. Another challenge, Roland, is the church has failed Black people. So let's be clear, the majority of the Black church has been conservative, and I think has been captured by white evangelical theology. Mm-hmm. The Black prophetic church has always been a minority movement, but a strong one, punching above our weight. The challenge I see is that preachers like me have abdicated the theologies of Harriet Tubman and of Nat Turner have abdicated the theologies of Richard Allen and others who understood that what we have to do is there is no salvation not tethered to human physical and economic freedom. And so if you read the first chapter of Exodus that talks about the folk looking out and seeing the numbers of the enslaved increasing, and they say, we must destroy them. We will kill their sons and we will take their girls for ourselves. Were it not for those midwives in the text, the people would have been destroyed. And I want to offer thanks to our sisters who time and time again have saved us, have stood up. Now it's time for us to work together and to see that this is rooted in white demographic anxiety and a hatred of seeing anybody not white in power. And it will be unrelenting. The sad thing is, in our comfort, we thought that our children would be free. And the majority of black people today have less than we had at the height of the movement. So also the schism between blacks like me who are relatively comfortable and the majority of black people who are poor, low wealth, low wage, we have to come together because when they come for us, they're not gonna ask about degrees. They're not going to ask if we split
first
verbs.
of all, you can have all the degrees you want. They still going to call you a DI. Still going to call you that. I was taping an episode of with Brothers last night of Earn Your Leisure. It's going to air tomorrow night at 10 p.m. And they raised the question. They said, well, this is how Democrats have failed black people. Black people saying this, that, and the other. And I literally said, first of all, if anybody says nothing has changed, that's a lie. I said, I'm not even entertaining. I said, that's a waste of my breath. I said, because that's a lie. I said, we could sit here and let me be real clear. We know, because their setup was, black church infrastructure, NAACP, all of this black infrastructure tied to Democrats. And what have we gotten? And I said, well, I know what you will never get here. I said, I know what we've gotten here, but what more we can demand here, meaning difference between Democrats and Republicans. I said, this is abundantly clear to me, where do folks stand on basic fundamental issues? I said, if a person over here says, I believe in economic inclusion, and the person over here says, I want to end all programs that allow for economic inclusion, to me, this ain't a difficult conversation. And so I'm not about to get caught up in no Democrat-Republican thing. I said what I advocate for is a black thing in terms of what is the best interest of black people. I said, now, you bring me a Republican agenda. I'll look at it and say, is that in the best interest of black people? But I dare say what I'm seeing from 2 blocks away ain't remotely in the best interest of black people, and it is specifically about targeting black people. And for this man, and here's what's so crazy, when those charges were filed against those Proud Boys, that was from the U.S. Attorney in D.C. in terms of when they were with those charges. The acting U.S. Attorney in D.C. is their former lawyer. That's who Donald Trump put in charge. He represented Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, and he filed a brief with the court going against the Department of Justice when the federal judge ruled that Oath Keeper cannot come into the United States Capitol. That lawyer is now the U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C.
One of the things you raised, Roland, is very important. We made a big mistake in wedding black politics to the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is a corporate party, and whenever it is inconvenient for them to fight for liberation, they drop the agenda. Now, what we have to do, the politics of black people has always been practical. As you said, why would I vote for someone who wants to clearly get me and my people out of the economy? We don't do that. We vote practically for a choice that will further our agenda, but this is the problem. We stopped thinking that it was victory for us when they won, when our job was always to push them farther and to build more power. So I'm a registered Democrat, but I do not trust Democrats to freebie. I cannot. We cannot. They will only go so far. Take a look geopolitically at how they have to keep their mouths closed on certain issues. Because if not, then they are separated. It is what Gerald Horne always says, that we will only be free if we have an international view.
Right.
If we join our struggle, like King did, with the struggle of black, poor, brown, minoritized people around the world. This is what Du Bois was doing. This is what Douglass did. You have to see us internationally. Our leadership today is afraid to say that this that we see, this fascism in America, is related to what you see in Germany, what you see in Russia with Putin,
Italy,
what you see in South Africa. There is a rise in white anxiety. We've seen this before. What we did then is we doubled down and we strengthened our institutions. Here's another problem I have, Roland. And I understand a lot of black people have separated themselves from black institutions. You think that now that you have made it, your job is to get as far away from things black. No. Now is a time, black people watching Roland, with disposable income, to support with your money and your presence black institutions that are fighting for liberation. Don't just go because they're black. Don't go for the coonery and the buffoonery, but find those who are doing real work and support them. Your grandchildren's lives depend on it.
So it was interesting, you made that point. You were talking about the black church earlier. And I saw a story Ben Crump had talked about. He said, we need the black press now more than ever. He mentioned NMPA. So I sent Ben this, which is from Dr. King's book, Chaos or Community, Where Do We Go From Here? Go to my iPad. And I reference this a lot on the show. And MLK writes this, and this was his last book. It was his least popular book because he said some stuff that just scared white folk, but he also scared black people. He said, there are already structured forces in the Negro community that can serve as the basis for building a powerful united front. The Negro Church, the Negro Press, the Negro fraternities and sororities, and Negro professional associations. We must admit that these forces have never given their full resources to the cause of Negro liberation. There are still too many Negro churches that are so absorbed in a future good over yonder, he put that in quotations, that they condition their members to adjust to the present evils, in quotations, over here. Too many Negro newspapers have veered away from their traditional role as protest organs, agitating for social change, and have turned to the sensational and the conservative in place of the substantive and the militant.
Yes, sir.
Too many Negro social and professional groups have degenerated into snobbishness and a preoccupation with frivolities and trivial activity.
Yes, sir.
But the failures of the past must not be an excuse for the inaction of the present and the future. These groups must be mobilized and motivated. And the reason, so I keep this in the favorites in my phone, because I'm always referencing it, and I've memorized it as well.
Brother Romantic, look, you're going to make me jump out of my skin, because this is why in 1967, J. Edgar Hoover's FBI called Martin King the most dangerous Negro in America. They do not consider any of us to be dangerous anymore because we sing from their sheet of music. It is not one of liberation. It is not one of saying we are one people. What he says there, that attack is the attack of E. Franklin Frazier and black bourgeoisie, the same thing. And this is what people, when they talk about the talented 10th, they forget that 50 years later, Du Bois made a speech. And he said he was wrong about the talented 10th because the talented 10th, instead of lifting the race, had become better at being materialist and white-centered than white people. They had abandoned their call to use what they had received and uplift economically and educationally to lift the masses as one people and to lift up all of those who are struggling. The black struggle has always been universal. We have always fought for all. We have always done it. In Reconstruction, Du Bois is clear when the whole Hollywood is based on the mythology of white supremacy. That first movie, Birth of a Nation, it is to fight the idea that blacks can self-govern and be a part of democracy. This is as American as apple pie and baseball. And until we awaken to the fact that that's what it was, but we fought it before, we can fight it again and still be joyful, still be loving. But remember that this is our vocation. If we stay here, this is what we must do.
So it's interesting you bring up that Du Bois speech because...
You got that too?
Yes. Go to my iPad. It's literally on the screen. And he gave that speech at the Grand Boule of Sigma Pi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, the Boule at Wilberforce, Ohio, which took place August 11th through the 13th, 1948.
Yes, sir.
And so for all of y'all who are, I see Scott Bolden waiting to speak. He's also a member of the Boule, just like I am. And literally what he said is the same thing that I've even said to Boule members. And I've said the exact same thing to Alpha and to the Deltas and AKs and Omegas and Kappas, what King talked about, that the fundamental problem is what I told the brothers on EYL yesterday as well. I said the fundamental problems that I see, like King says, is that we spend so much time on what's happening on the internal politics of our organizations, and we ain't even talking about what's happening outside. And the reason regular, ordinary folk see us as the bourgeois elite is because they never see us showing up in our colors, representing our organizations at the city council meeting, at the county meeting, at the school board meeting, at the state legislature. Some do. Some are doing that. And I said, and this is the moment. What's happening now is that our people are crying out for black leadership right now. And they're saying, what is the response going to be to MAGA and these white nationalists, these white supremacists? And a lot of folk are real quiet.
And it hasn't changed. So what Dr. Du Bois did, he resigned from that fraternity. He resigned. And his idea was that each member group of that fraternity would, in their locality, he said that that fraternity could transform our people if each group of those professional brothers,
meaning each chapter,
in their local space would lift using their resources. And when they refused that, he said goodbye. Now the answer has not evaded us. We built schools, we built colleges, we built mutual aid societies. We know what to do, but now we have become so polarized, and black people that think they have so judgmental. So what I hear my mother reminding me of is where she grew up in Macon, Georgia. You had doctors living next door to workaday folk because they had no choice. We were caring for one another. But now, as a pastor, I see some sad things, and I have heard black parents who tell me there is no value in their children being in black institutions or black social spaces, like literally. And I don't know of other cultures that say that.
Right.
So that poisoning of the well, you are, in the words of a dear friend, fattening frogs for snakes. And it will not be long before we are consumed if we do not divorce ourselves from that mentality.
Well, before I go to my panel here, you get a kick out of this. Every time I'm in a conversation or I see a posting, and I have a lot of these conversations, and there are a number of people who I know. I know a number of black millionaires, mega millionaires, and even black billionaires. And when I hear them talk about what we should do, I always hit my digital guy, said, can you check the roles to see if they are a donor to the show? And the answer is always no. So the same folk who are always saying, oh, brother, hope you're taking care of yourself because we need you speaking. And I go, but you're not actually helping fund it. But you could, but you're not. So I always do that. I always do it because, and I would challenge folk, you can't say this is what we need in black media, this is what we need, if you're not willing to also make it happen. Happens all the time. And when I say all the time, not one time have I called him and he said, oh yes, so-and-so's name is on this list. And it's if I listed the names, it would be a who's who of black America.
Roland, how can we convene those people? Again, don't convene on Facebook, because we know those attentional oligarchs are already in the pocket of MAGA. How can we convene? Because you know more of them. I may know 2, you may know 2,000 of them. But how do we get in a space to say, this is what we will do for one another? We have our own economy. There are black people of extraordinary wealth just here in Washington. And many of them are not a part of any black institution where they're really giving their largesse. That's not who we've been as our best selves. What happened to us?
Well, I think the first thing, but again, panel, get ready, I'm going to go to you. Here's what I think has often happened. And I tell people all the time, well, we can't do this. We seek a consensus before we move. Whereas I say, if I call 100 people and 10 show up to the meeting, I'm not spending any time talking about why the 90 didn't show up. I'm spending all my time on the 10 that did show up. And then I'm gonna ask those 10 that we meet next month, I need you to bring one person. So I know guaranteed next month we're gonna have 20 people. Then next month we're gonna have 40. Then next month we're gonna have 80, then 160. So and then once we start, because I did this video the other day, because this is, and I use Nehemiah. Nehemiah saw the wall, he was pained by it. He told the people his plan, the people said, let us rebuild. Part of the issue, those people are waiting to hear a plan. They're waiting to hear a plan. We spend lots of time on the initial meeting.
And then
but there's no plan.
Yeah.
And so what then happens is they get frustrated when ain't no plan, so why am I wasting my time with the meeting? And so I then say, we have to create a plan, start it, and then come back and say, oh, we got a plan, we already started, and we already had some success, but we can do more with it. There were black people who literally told me this would not work. I didn't listen to them. They said, man, you're wasting your time. Didn't listen to them. This was funded, self-funded by me, but also the people who watch. I didn't waste my time on the rich black people who I personally knew and told about this, who I personally text, who never responded. What I did do was tell the regular ordinary folk, like Nehemiah did, let's rebuild, let's build. And the people said, let us rebuild. That to me, I think, is where we are. We have to call the meeting, and whoever shows up, we're gonna work with them. Then we're gonna build, and then once we start rocking and rolling, oh, y'all wanna come join? We're not slowing down, so y'all better hop on while we moving. But we keep waiting for that consensus meeting.
And well, let me say this, because I see Ida B. Wells behind it. I'm thinking about
and James Baldwin right there.
Oh wow, and Ella Jo
Baker. Mr. B right there.
Oh wow, and Mr. Bill. The Ella Jo Baker is in my mind.
Yep.
That the masses are already struggling for their liberation. And what we have to do is to listen and to learn. And people are asking, who is the leader? Stop trying to enshrine one person.
There's no leader.
There are movements around. It's distributed, it's dispersed, and we need to connect. We need to connect and learn. Do not make the mistake of what Empire does, which is, I am always the teacher. I have all knowledge. Listen and learn, because those who have been struggling have been making progress. And if we come together and coalesce, really, I think those who have must resource and amplify those who are doing good work on the ground. I think that there is a possibility that we can continue to push back, but never forget that America always comes back with the backlash when we make progress. That will never, the mistake we made was believing that America was not going to be America post the Obama situation or whatever people thought. No. I never, you cannot, it's what Jeremiah Wright has said, and I think he got this from Charles Long, that if you bake a cake, once the cake is baked, you can't take the eggs and the sugar and the milk out. The American cake has been baked in such a way that we have been trying our best to put the icing of justice on it, but they keep taking it off. So we gotta continue to figure out, if we're going to stay here, what our strategies will be. And it will only happen if we're together. And this internal class struggle within black people and bourgeois judgment is a demon that must be exorcised if we will be free.
Well, absolutely. And so the thing that so many of us need to understand when you mentioned Ella Baker, the reason she and King clashed is that King believed pulpit to pew. She believed pew to pulpit. And if anybody wants to understand that, go to my iPad. You need to get Barbara Ransby's book, Ella Baker and the Black Freedom Movement, A Radical Democratic Vision. So I got that on the shelf as well. So know all that very familiar. My PAM, Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice, the EPA. Melinda Hale, actress and content creator. A. Scott Bolden, he is former chair of the National Bar Association and D.C. Chamber of Commerce, joining us from D.C. So glad to have all three of you here. Scott, I'll start with you. Your question for Pastor Lamar.
Good evening, Pastor.
Good to see you, sir.
Good seeing you. This is a fascinating discussion. We could do a 2-day conference on this discussion. I agree with everything you've said. For someone who is in big corporate law and a history maker in big corporate law, it takes courage and fearlessness to stand up and to lead and to have a consciousness about your blackness when often you're the only one in the room. So few of us have that, right? And those of us that do, that obligation came from either our parents. My parents were civil rights activists in Illinois. I have a very black resume, indoctrinated at Morehouse College and Howard Law School, and I've never lost that consciousness. But I would like for you to comment on one thing, the role of historical black colleges today versus the white ancestors who started them, if you will, and how you see their role as an institution, whether they're black bourgeoisie or not, but they're producing a middle class. And we as African-American professionals still don't give enough back to support those very institutions. Money has compromised our consciousness, if you will. We're out there, don't get me wrong, me, Ben Wilson, and so many others, but they're just not enough. And when you're the only one in the room, you got to be fearless and stand up and stand for your community. But if you don't feel connected to that consciousness of those communities of color, you think you only have to stand up for yourself. We have to deprogram that, as I think you said. But can you talk about that in the context of historical black colleges?
Oh, Brother Scott, thank you for the question. And I myself am a product of the highest of 7 hills, Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. And one of
the Rattler.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They're yes, most definitely. And let me say this. These schools help to produce a thriving black middle class. And those of us in the black middle class are often unaware of how small we are. The black middle class is small in comparison to the black masses here. And again, I do not want to separate us from an international perspective, but we'll speak domestically now. And let me say that what we inculcated at our best as black colleges is people who would be community connected and conscious. I think part of the challenge is that we not only are maneuvering in capitalist spaces, but we have adopted capitalist values. We cannot, black people and those who are for liberation, maneuver within capitalism, which is a system designed to produce extreme poverty. It is designed to extract from the masses. And the challenge is our mothers and fathers were in capitalist systems like A.G. Gaston, but A.G. Gaston did not have a capitalist mentality. John Johnson was engaging in capitalism, but did not have a capitalist mentality. Madam C.J. Walker was funding NAACP and freedom movement. So she was moving within capitalism, but she did not have a capitalist mentality.
John Hope Bryan said you can't give money away like a socialist until you make it like a capitalist. That's his phrase.
Right. So they had money, but they did not wed their spirits to the capitalist ethos. Today, our leaders from pulpit to corporate boardrooms have wed ourselves to capitalist values, and that is why the black masses do not trust us.
Melinda.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed listening to both of you talk. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up is just reiterate the fact that you were saying, you know, every era our community goes through this having to fight back just against racist, nonsensical ideologies. And we are tired, but I think it's in our DNA, as you mentioned, that we have to keep pushing back and fighting back against this. But one of the things I wanted to ask you is, do you think now having the trademark of Proud Boys being owned by the Black church, do you think that that's going to embolden their base even more?
It appears that it will, in many ways, that we know that they will not lie down, that they will not take this lying down, they will fight. What I want to recover, what you said, is we do have to fight, but I need Black people to understand that we never stopped having joy. That we have always been creative and loving. I use the image of Congo Square in New Orleans. The French culture allowed the enslaved on Sunday to gather to sell the wares that they created as artisans. And it was there in Congo Square, in the midst of enslavement, that our people created what we now call jazz, which is the basis of all American artistic production. When Africans there who took that one day of quote unquote liberative movement, they created a music that really powers the world. What we need to understand is, even when we have been in dire straits, we never stop living, loving, frying fish, inviting one another out, making love, making babies, making music. We must still be fully human beings, but we must be willing to fight. So I don't want us to give either. Right. And we must also rest. So we've got to balance a number of things. But yes, they will keep coming. I mean, it is unrelenting. And the thing I want to remind us of is they have been unrelenting, but so have we. Ernest Green, who's a member of our congregation, said part of the reason he fought with the Little Rock Nine is that he had a history teacher that taught him about the Maroon community. The Maroon communities who left the places of enslavement, went deep into the woods, into the bayou, connected sometimes with themselves, sometimes with natives, and they built places of freedom and connection. So my argument is, we gotta fight, but we gotta be creative, we gotta have joy, we gotta rest, we have to be full human beings, because this onslaught is designed not only to distract us, but to diminish the power that we have to be transformative and revolutionary.
Mustafa?
Minister, thank you for feeding the spirit and also, feeding the activism that is so necessary. Fannie Lou Hamer once said that nobody is free until everybody is free. What does freedom look like for Black folks in 2025?
Freedom for Black people in 2025 looks like first, very basic, the ability to move freely without molestation. I ought to be able to worship a few blocks from here without some violent fools desecrating my place of worship. And freedom of movement, we know, is counter to everything American. We know police forces were founded to control Black movement. We know redlining existed to keep Blacks in certain places. So part of what freedom looks like is dismantling every American impulse to control Black movement. And we got to be careful because we police ourselves in unhealthy ways. So that's one. I think another is a right to fully thrive economically. Now here's the problem. When we have risen economically, violence has been used to beat that back.
Yes.
In Tulsa, in Rosewood. Lynching was not about the sexual stuff that they used, but it was about what Ida B. Wells wrote. It was economic envy. Leave us alone. We're not bothering you. When we thrive together. So I think it looks like being able to move. It looks like, and here's the problem, meritocracy. Give me a break. Meritocracy has never existed in America. They created systems to keep people from competing. Right. Any idea of meritocracy, if you buy that, you are believing the most abominable lie. So give me the chance to participate economically without exploitation. Give me freedom of movement and allow me to gather with my people without you're trying to come and destroy what we're doing. See, the attack on the church tells us that they have more faith in what we can create when we're together than we do. They are attacking the thing that they know to be our strength, but we have not awakened to it. So what I want to know is, I can't get in Scott Bolden's checkbook, but where's the money going? Because I've seen Scott. I know Scott. So what are we doing with it?
I'll publicly get in his checkbook.
You get Scott. All right, so you off the hook, brother
He
Scott.
knows.
All right.
He knows. I will jam him up. I'll jam him up in a heartbeat on air. I made him donate on air because he kept telling me, I'm gonna do it. I'm like, I ain't waiting on you.
It's all love, brother Scott. All love.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now, we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $4.8 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.